Hey, this is the audio recording for my post 5 of my JMC class about media ownership. Media ownership is something I'm acutely aware of, being someone who is generally very left-leaning, and also of the demographic that generally consists of left as a gay person, who lived in a very conservative area. So I am pretty acutely aware of how often things on the news are false because I've looked at it for a very long time, and some of the local news would incriminate things that happened at my school involving usually like bathroom stuff with like trans people because they would make statements and then go back on the statements, and then the trans people were always the victim, or not the victim, they were the victim in my eyes, but in the eyes of the news they were like the bad person. So there was a bunch of stuff like that. And so that way I think was the main time I started looking into like why that was happening. I was very angry about it. This was like my 8th grade year. Um and so it wasn't super common, but it was like one event that like really sparked a lot of controversy based on like, well, trans people in my hometown, and people were very upset about it. And so the news just kind of dogged on this person for a while, and then they got really depressed, and I think they moved away, although I didn't know them personally. But the news can have a super huge effect on a lot of people, and especially effect on the local community. I think the video where he talked about Sinclair kind of controlling what local news was saying, it brings up a very good point. You're much more tempted to believe what your local news is saying. Your guard is down, you know? Like you said, if you go to Fox or if you go to CNN, you're looking out. You're probably like, okay, I know these people lean this way and are going to try and push that narrative. But your local news, it's like, hey, I've seen that guy around town before, you know? I see this guy every morning. I know this person. And they probably wouldn't lie to me, right? And the reality is they probably don't want to lie to you, I hope. But they might have to because of Sinclair. For me, how I get my news, because I like to try and stay up to date, is I look at the Pew Research Center. I found it to be something that actually reports on a lot of stuff while still being pretty unbiased and mostly factual. It can be kind of a hard read. It is very, very factual, like unbiased to like a statistics level sometimes. But another funny thing I think about it is you can find things from all over the internet that just take bits and pieces from Pew Research and just be like, this is something that Pew Research said, and this is what it means. But then what they say it means isn't what Pew Research said it means. They just took the, like, credible information from Pew Research, which I think is very funny. And you can find this on all sides. You know, you can find it on the New York Times, and you can find it on CNN, and you can find it on Fox. You can find it everywhere. I think Pew Research is definitely a very. I think I might be going crazy, but I think in this class there was an article we were given from Pew Research, which is a good thing. I love Pew. Um, I think the reality of how media conglomerates control the media is that there's not a whole lot of ways these days to get around it. Really, the best way that I have found is read a bunch of different news reports on the same event. But the problem is a lot of the reason news is so popular is because if you want to look at one specific event, it's 3 or 4 minutes about that one topic, and then you're done. You don't have to listen to more of it. Or if you want to listen to a bunch of stuff, it's even more time. And then you compile all that up. You take what could have been 15 minutes while you're getting ready in the morning to now you're taking 2 hours just to see if you can possibly piece together what's actually happening. Um, and I think it's largely due to monopolies. Monopolies are something I personally have a big problem with, but it is a really big deal. I mean, I think there's this picture that circulated around maybe a couple years back at this point, and it kind of showed like everything you buy at a grocery store. And it showed that there's like 8 companies, like total, you know? And it also, people were like, Pepsi and Cola are under the same parent company. And that's always funny to me. All this stuff can be fabricated. A war between who's going to make more money is really not all that meaningful because at the end of the day, they're under the same parent company. They're competing for space, but if one's doing worse than the other and the parent company wants them both there, then the parent company just makes that happen. So I think there's a level of misinformation that pollutes everywhere, no matter what you do. And I think the important thing to do is understand that the only way to know what's actually happening is to be there. Take everything with a grain of salt. Make sure that you, when hearing information, aren't just believing it immediately. Just because your best friend says they saw this on the news, your best friend's probably not trying to lie to you, but the people who told it on the news might be trying to lie to your best friend, right? So that's kind of my stance on it. It's a maybe pessimistic stance, but I don't think it's going to get better. I don't. I think there are problems that are going to last for decades further that will not be resolved for a long time. And even when those problems do get resolved, that resolution is going to bring up another problem. And all of those problems in the general populace are much more antagonizing, and even more so are antagonized by the news. And I would be very, very surprised if the world we live in decided to go for the root of the problem rather than just try and cut off some branches. So, I don't know. I'd love to be proven wrong. I'd love to see that people start really tanking like news watch statistics, but yeah, I don't really see that happening. So, yeah. Thanks for listening.